If you follow Facebook and you follow the events that are posted on Facebook, or if you follow our newsletter, which I hope you all do, I'm kind of doubting that you all do, but if you don't, you can start doing that. But if you follow that and you came today expecting to hear about the gifts of the Magi, I want to first of all apologize. Because something else was moving in me this week, and it was so impactful for me that I wanted to share that with you today. So I'm not going to be talking about that today. Yeah, it's a blank screen. Yeah, I love that. Just a blank canvas today. Maybe it's blank canvas up here. I'm not sure, but anyway. So there's a book that has touched my life since I first discovered it. And I first discovered this book back in 2010, I believe. And it was actually published the first time in 1996. So it's been out for quite a while. And it's a book by Wayne Muller. Some of you may know of Wayne. If you don't know of Wayne Muller, I highly recommend anything that he has ever written or recorded. He's such a bright spirit and deep in his thinking. And he wrote this book called How Then Shall We Live? And in this book, he explores these questions. And he talks about these questions of life that are really, he has taken them from many different faith traditions, that many different spiritual traditions invite us into these questions of life. And I think they're really just questions that we ponder. And I think it's so important as we move into this new year. I talked about that last week, about this new year. And again, it's nothing magical about us moving from December 31st to January 1st, but there's something in our consciousness that says this is a new beginning. It's a new opportunity for us to do something different, for us to start fresh, for us to have this blank canvas, so to speak. And so I think we take that to heart, that it's important for us to ask ourselves these questions. And so I was revisiting that this week, and I thought it was very powerful. And the questions are, who am I? What do I love? How will I live knowing that I will die? And what is my gift to the family of the earth? 4 simple questions. And when I think about, if you've heard me talk more than once, you know I talk quite a bit about who we are, who we really are, the very essence of us, and reclaiming that and remembering that and living from that truth. But as I have pondered this question of who am I think there are other aspects of that other questions that come up for me around that I think are also important. And they are this: what am I? You know, Teilhard de Chardin said, and I know we've all heard this, you are a spiritual being having a human experience. Haven't we all heard? You are a spiritual being having a human experience. And when we ponder that, I think that in a way answers for me part of that question of what? What am I? What are you? What is anyone? We are spiritual beings, spiritual essences. We are light, we are love, we are these beings, and I don't even like the word being because it kind of limits this idea that we are a being. I think we're energy, we are life itself, we are an expression of the allness or the grandness or the majesty or the love or the light or everything that we can possibly imagine God to be. That you are that individuated. That's what you are. That's what I am. You are a spiritual, where you really are spirit at your very essence. And everything that you can imagine spirit to be, God to be, source to be, you are an expression of that. So that's what you are. But you're also having a human experience. And I think for me, that sort of answers the question of why am I? Have you ever asked the question, why am I? Why am I here? And I think the best thing I can come up with about that is that we're here to have a human experience. But we're here to experience the allness that God is. We're here to experience it through our humanness, through taste and touch and sight and feeling and just our emotions. How else can God experience itself except through us? Consciously experiencing itself, awakening unto itself. And so these ideas, the basic idea of what am I? I'm spirit. Why am I? I'm here to experience spirit, and I'm here to share spirit. Just like that song said, I'm here to give and receive love. If I just reduce it down to the basics, I'm here to give and receive love. Period. And I was reminded this week of something that happened a while ago. I don't even know exactly how long it has been. I was the minister at Unity in Denver, and I gave my talk that Sunday morning, and I was probably talking a lot about that. I mean, I talk about oneness a lot. I talk about us being a light and us being spirit and all of that. And a man, I don't even remember what I said. But I'm sure it was wise, I'm sure it was deep and wise, whatever I said, right? So I don't remember, but what I do remember is a comment that was made by a man who walked out the door. I was standing at the door greeting people. And he said to me, "My identity matters." And I was sort of like, my first reaction was probably like, oh, he's contradicting what I said, right? So it's like, my first reaction might have been defensiveness. Well, I don't understand what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. But I remember that, and I've held on to that, and I have taken that to heart. And what I want to share with us today is when we're asking these questions about who am I, we very often in our spiritual tradition, in Unity and New Thought, we go directly to I am God expressing, or I am an expression of God, I'm a spiritual being, and we are that. But what I want to share with us this morning is that who you are in this physical life space also matters. You're not defined by your history. You're not defined by your skin color. You're not defined by your sex or your gender identity. You're not defined by any of that because you are spirit. However, everything that you've experienced in your life, everything that you have grown up with, everything in your DNA, everything of your religion and your family, and everything has gone into helping to shape who you are today. And I don't think any of that happens randomly or by accident. So who you are, how you're showing up today, this body, this mind, this experience, matters. And it's important for us it's important for me to recognize that. Again, not to be defined by it, but what do I do with that? What do I do with that? How do I make a difference just from being who I am, for showing up in my humanness? I hope that's making sense. I'm not sure it's making sense to me in the moment, but I think it's important. What do I do with that? How do I show up today? And I think, again, it's an important question to ask, who am I being now? Who am I being now in this very moment? The second question he invites us into is, what do I love? What do I love? What is it in my life when I see it or smell it or taste it or experience it connects me with something deep within me, something that makes me smile, something that brings inspiration to me. What is that? I think in some ways it can be born out of our connection with who we are and what we are. What do you love? Have you ever really asked yourself that question? What do I love? It doesn't have to be anything huge. He tells a story in the book that really touched me about a woman who came to one of his workshops or retreats. And he asked this question, what do you love? And there was a woman in the circle who had been blind from birth. And she was blind from birth because she was born prematurely. She was placed in an incubator. And that incubator, where the oxygen level was not set properly. So she didn't get enough oxygen to her brain to develop her sight. So in the circle, when he said, what do you love? She said, I love my breath. I just love being able to breathe. Every breath is a gift. And I love to breathe. And he said he was surprised by that, but delighted in that. Every breath. He tells a story of a woman who became a writer because she loved sentences. Or a painter who became a painter because he loved the smell of paint. Or a potter who became a potter because he just loved the feel of the clay in his hands. What do you love? As I was sitting meditating one morning this week, I looked out the window, these great windows where I am, and I could see the silhouette of this magnificent tree. And I was just awestruck by this tree. I've always loved trees. I love to look at trees. I love to touch them. I love to just simply marvel at them. How they grow, and imagining their root system, and imagining some of the trees, the one out here in the courtyard. And I've seen other live oaks as I'm walking around the neighborhood where the limbs just seem to grow horizontally out, and then they grow up. And it fascinates me. I love trees. I know people who love birds, and they're birders. What do you love? And when you find out what you love, are you putting it somewhere in the center of your life? Do you love music? Do you love cooking? I think it's really important as we are exploring our lives and creating this year. What do we want to create this year? To really allow ourselves to be with what we love. The sights and the smells and the tastes and the sounds of what inspires us. And to give ourselves permission to enjoy it, to experience it. I remember Brene Brown talking about how, I don't remember which book it was, I've read most of her books, but she talks about how important it was for her to actually write herself a permission slip to have fun, to enjoy her life. I give myself permission. So if it takes that, write yourself a permission slip and sign it. I give myself permission to connect with what I love and to experience it as often as I possibly can. Because I believe there's enrichment in that. Enrichment that comes from that. What do I love? And then the third question he invites us into is, how will I live knowing that I will die? He says in the Bhagavad Gita, the question is asked, what is the most amazing thing? And the answer is the most amazing thing is that all around the world, people age, they get sick, they die. But the most amazing thing is that somehow we think we're going to escape that. We think we have all the time in the world to do what we want to do. But what we know is that at some point, we don't know when. I don't know when I'm going to lay down this physical form. You don't know when you're going to lay down your physical form. But at some point, we probably will. I don't think any of us is going to make it out alive. At least, not that we know of at this moment. But so he talks about every life is framed by death, what we might call transition into a new experience. So what are we doing with the life that we have? I mean, if we know that, whether that is 30 years from now, or 20 years from now, or 10 years from now, or maybe it's a day from now, we don't know. How are we going to choose to live our life knowing that at some point this particular incarnation is going to end? There's a book that was written by a woman named Bronnie Ware. She's an Australian author. And she worked in palliative care with people who were in the process of making their transition. And she wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, a life transformed by the nearly departed. The first regret was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life that is true to me. Going back to those other two questions. Who am I? Why am I? What am I? What do I love? Can we be true to who we are and live a life that's true to who we are, not a life that someone else expects us to live? I remember something that I know it was Steve Jobs said once in a commencement address that he gave. He said, I've had a practice from a great part of my life that every morning I get up and I look in the mirror and I say, if today was the last day I lived, would I be doing what I'm about to go do? And if the answer too often was no, then it was time to do something different. So are we living a life that's really true to us? The second is, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Right? I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Wish I'd played more. The third is, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. And I think that's really important for us to recognize, is that, I think sometimes in our culture it's hard for us sometimes to express our feelings, that we don't share with others what we're really feeling. I think we sometimes, especially, I don't know especially, but I was going to be very sexist there, but I was going to say we often don't tell people we love them. We don't share that with the people who mean something to us. We don't share with people how appreciative we are for how they have contributed to our lives. And sometimes we don't share with people ways how we feel when they do things that don't contribute to our lives. And that's important as well. To be aware of what we feel, not in blaming someone else, but owning it, feeling it, and expressing it to people. 4 is, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. I know people in my life who have had friends from kindergarten. They've remained friends, they've remained close. And I sometimes envy that because I don't do a very good job of staying in touch with my friends. And 5 is I wish I had let myself be happier. Anybody relate to that? I wish I'd let myself be happier. I wish I hadn't worried so much. I wish I hadn't cared so much about what other people think. I wish I had known that happiness really is a choice. And so I want to repeat those. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not a life others expected of me. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. And I wish I had let myself be happier. So I want to invite us into is if any of that resonates with you, any of it, maybe just pick one, if any of them. And I invite you to make a choice this week to do something different. You know, as I've contemplated that this week, I've thought, I don't stay in touch with my friends. I don't stay in touch with the people I care about. So I'm making a commitment to myself to do that differently, to reach out. Whether that's by text or phone call, or even a messenger on Facebook Messenger, whatever it is. To reach out to people that you care about, people who are in your life, or whatever it is for you. One thing. Just make a choice to do one thing differently in living that life that you really want to live. There's also a book, I don't remember the author, but I recommend it. Just came to mind, actually. I Will Not Die an Unlived Life, which is a very powerful book as well. How will we live knowing that we're going to die? He also invites us into this practice, which I'm going to share with you, and you might have some resistance to. I know I did when I first heard it. He invites us into a practice of saying to ourselves, or aloud, however, I could die today. I could die today. How does it feel? Say it to yourself. I could die today. What comes up for you? Resistance? Regret? Hope? I could die today. And it's true. Any one of us could die today. But in some ways, if we allow ourselves to know that, to believe that, to be in the presence of that, there is some freedom in it as well. If we know that we could die today, if you could recognize, yeah, I could die today, what would you do differently? How would you live your life differently? Who would you reach out to? Just ponder that. I could die today. And the fourth question is, what is my gift to the family of the earth? And I think there again, sometimes we think it has to be this huge thing. Oh, I can't write the great American novel. I'm not going to write a song that is going to inspire millions of people. I'm not going to find a cure for some fatal disease. But he invites us to recognize that we all have gifts. Some gift. What if we recognize, it's not, and again, think about it right now. Right at this very moment. Not someplace in the future, like, oh, if in a year or two I'm going to give my gift to the world. But what right now in this moment is a gift that you can give to another? Not have to be a huge, I'm not giving it. Well, let me say this. If I can give to you and you give to me, you are giving to the world. What can you give? Maybe it's just a kind word. Maybe it's some encouragement. Maybe it's some compassion. Maybe it is just presence. Your very presence with another person can sometimes be the greatest gift that you can give. Your love, your presence, your attention. What is one thing that you can give? What he says in the book is really inspiring to me, and he talks about how there, now I don't know how many humans there are on the planet, 8 billion or something now. And we sometimes think of ourselves as being so small and insignificant. Well, I don't really have anything to give. And that's not true. You know why I know it's not true? Because you're here. You're here in this human form. And there are no accidents. As I said earlier, there are really no accidents. There's no accident that you're right here in this place. There's no accident you live in Dallas, Texas. There's no accident you do what you do. There's no accident that you were born into the family you were born into. No accidents. Because you have a gift. You're unique. And you have a gift that only you can give. It may touch one person. It may touch 10 people. It may touch millions of people. But you have a gift. So I invite us into these questions for ourselves. But too, I want to extend that just a little bit. Because I think it's also something that we, as a spiritual community, as Unity on Greenville, get to invite ourselves into as well, as we move into what's now, what's next. Who are we as a spiritual community? Who are we as Unity on Greenville? What is it that we love collectively? Really, what is it that inspires us? Why are we coming here together? Why do we gather together? What is it about this place? Is it beauty? Is it community? Is it connection? Is it inspiration? What is it that we love? And what is it that we have to share, to give? To give to other world? Space? We have a lot of space. Love, acceptance, compassion. What do we have to give? And I'm not going to say the church is going to die. I'm not going to say that. But how do we live? How do we live this day? Making choices, knowing that there may not be a tomorrow. We don't know. But what are we going to do today that can really make a difference in somebody's life? So as we ponder those questions for ourselves, truly asking deep within us, what am I? Why am I? Who am I? What do I love? And when you define what you love, recognize that this community is a collection of many different yous. And so what you love comes up, and what you love springs up, and what you love. And when you come together and create from those expressions, and you create this community of different loves, different inspirations, different gifts and talents. So, Be aware of that as you move forward this week, this year. And I'm not saying it's a question, those are questions you can answer immediately or that will come to you immediately. They continue to evolve. So let's take a moment and go within as we take that in. I know I've said a lot of words today, and rather than moving, staying in our heads, let's just move as we breathe down into our hearts and into our bodies. Taking in what might have come up for you, any resistance, any excitement, anything that might have come up for you today, hearing and being here and asking those questions of yourself. Being with yourself in this moment and opening up to that deeper knowing within you. What do I love? How will I live this day, this moment? And what do I have to share, to give to the family of the earth right here and right now? And allow yourself to claim it, to be it, and to share it, whatever that is. Take a deep breath. Feel it in your body. Feel your heart opening. Feel every cell of your body resonating with the life that you are. And we are so grateful. And so it is. Amen.